Hi folks, it is Thibaut Van Dam here with another YouTube video. And for those of you who are not familiar with my channel, I am a DIY singer-songwriter and guitar tutor based in Southeast London. Today I'm very excited to be continuing my series all about practical guitar and music theory. Specifically, I'm continuing my sub-series of the cage system. And specifically, we're just going to be learning how to play the A major and A minor chords today. The A major and A minor chords are incredibly versatile chords, and they appear in countless songs. And then it's also worth pointing out that in the cage system, when we learn this chord today, we'll actually learn two different ways of fretting the chord in such a way where we're actually able to move the chord around to then play bar chords, to play additional chords, not just A major, but chords like B major or C major. And this is the power of the cage system. So if this sounds exciting to you, please definitely stay tuned. Please consider liking the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It's the best way to stay up to date with what I do. And it, of course, continues to motivate me to keep making these videos. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and get into it. So I haven't really taken any notes to follow, so I'm sort of looking around my table like, what am I going to say? And I came up with a archetype of this type of video when I talk about how to play a chord. And specifically, I wanted to just talk about how to play it in a practical sense, referring to which fingers go where. And I also just want to take some time to talk about troubleshooting, so what to do when you run into problems specifically that are more common with this chord shape. And then I'll just sort of demonstrate finally the applications of the cage system with this chord shape. So the A major chord is founded on the root being A. So in this case, the easiest way to do that is just to play the open A string, right? Eddie 8. And so we play this shape. Now there are two ways to shape the A major chord. And there's actually kind of like a third bonus way, so I'll talk a little bit about that. But the first obvious way to shape the A major chord is using fingers 1, 2, and 3. So we're going to take finger 1, which is index finger. We're going to place it on the 2nd fret of the D string. And this is playing the note E, actually. Then we're going to take our middle finger, or finger 2, and we're going to place it directly below that. So again, fret 2, but this time instead on the string G. Then we're going to place our ring finger, finger 3, on the 2nd fret, again, directly below that same string. So we're playing the 2nd fret of the B string, which then produces the note C sharp. And in this case, because it's an open chord, we can strum straight through and play that high E, because that fits right in. You might notice that actually that is a note that already appears in that structure. Now that I pointed out this way of sort of playing with fingers 1, 2, and 3, if you want to take advantage of the cage system, you will want to be able to play this same chord, but with fingers 2, middle finger, 3, ring finger, and 4, your pinky. And your pinky is going to be vital throughout this whole system to get the sound out. And what instead we're going to do is we're going to swap out some fingers. Or in a sense, we're going to take our index finger and we're just going to let go. And these two fingers are just going to bounce up. They're each going to hop up one string so that your middle finger is on the D string, playing the 2nd fret. Middle finger is now on the G string, playing the 2nd fret. And then finally, your pinky is on the B string, playing the 2nd fret. And again, that will produce an A chord. But the difference is now we've liberated our index finger, or finger 1, so that way we can then produce bars elsewhere on the neck. That's a C major. This is a D major. And this is all because we learned how to play the A major chord, but specifically with fingers 2, 3, and 4, right? And there is another way, a bonus way of playing this chord, which is basically where we produce something called a partial bar. The partial bar is where we take our index finger, and you might notice that our index finger has a little bit of give. There we go, a little bit more of a better exposure. A little bit of give. I know that this looks maybe uncomfortable, but it isn't. It's a little bit like when you push a button to an elevator, right? There's a little bit of give in our fingers going backwards. And you don't want to overdo it, but the idea is you kind of imagine for a second that you're pointing towards yourself, and I'm going to do something really stupid right now, but I'm basically just going to go boop and just kind of push my own head. And if you can imagine that kind of directionality pointed at me and my finger bends, that's what we're going to kind of go ahead and do. We're going to push down like that, and we're going to let our finger relax so that we can allow it to bend And the key to pulling this off is to go ahead and make sure that we're not covering the high E string with our index finger or finger 1, right? Okay, so those were 3 ways of forming the A major chord. Now I want to talk about the intervallic spaces between each of those chords. So I did mention in my video, in the past, about this idea of practical string rules. There is a practical string rule that does exist. There's actually a few that I'll point out in this video, so this is kind of a big deal. And it's one of the reasons why I love the A-shaped chord, the A major shaped chord, the A minor shaped chord. So using kind of our second variation of fretting, using fingers 2, 3, and 4, we'll set up that chord again. And let's just go through each of those strings just to find out which note we're holding down is which interval, right? And we know from triads that a major chord, we expect to see the following: a root, which is in this case A, and then we want to see the relative perfect fifth somewhere of the note A, and then the relative major third also of the note A. Now if we go through the chromatic scale from the note A, this is again the longhand way of doing this, but I will explain the practical string rule, the easy way to remember. Starting from the note A, if we want to find out what the perfect fifth of the note A is, we've got to basically count up 7 semitones or 7 frets. So we've got 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and finally 7. And if we go through the chromatic scale from the note A, and we know that we're going here, and you can use your marker on your guitar neck to help you identify where you're going again, then we have A sharp, B, C. Remember, B doesn't have a sharp, it goes to C. C sharp, D, D sharp, and finally E, right? There we go. So the perfect fifth of the note A is E. So obviously in order to play this as a chord, we need to find another place where we can play the note E. And as we went through the correct fretting, we found that the second fret on the D string, D, D sharp, E. This second fret is also the note E. So this is how we can play the A major chord, the perfect fifth of A, E, without actually needing to play it on the same string. And now that we've done this, this is a practical string rule I'm just going to talk about, which is basically the 0-2 rule. So going in line with this whole idea of the cage system, basically the idea of the 0-2 rule is that, and the idea of all practical string rules, just for the record, is that they work in proportionality, right? So if we play the open A string and we play the second fret on the string below, we construct what I call the 0-2 rule, which means when you do this shape, 0 and 2, that's always a perfect fifth. And when you move it proportionately, for instance, if we add 2 to each of those frets, so now instead of playing 0, 2, we play 2 and 4, that's also a perfect fifth, right? And this is a perfect fifth, and that is a perfect fifth. These are the building blocks as to why the cage system actually works, because when the intervals are kept proportionately distanced, a perfect fifth exists wherever you keep that distance, right? All of those are perfect fifths. So going back, that's the 0-2 rule. So this is also why we're able to then later on move the chord up, and this is an A major, an A sharp major, D major, and so on, because the perfect fifth is always kept intact. So this 0-2 rule is quite handy if you want to do something with the perfect fifth specifically. So later when we learn about how to play a diminished chord, you'll want to flatten the 5. And you'll say, where's the 5? And you'll say, oh, it's here. The 0-2 rule is the perfect 5. Let's flatten it. And I know diminished sounds pretty nasty, but it is what it is. Okay, so now moving on, let's find the other intervals of this chord. We have the root, our perfect 5, and we're looking for a major third. But let's go ahead and just ask this question. What note is this? This note that our ring finger or finger 3 is holding down. This note happens to be the octave. A, and this note is also A. So it's sort of a neutral impact. It doesn't affect our chord. And so therefore that's why we play. If we removed our ring finger, mind you, we actually play a dominant chord. We're playing the minor 7th. So the open G from the note A is actually the minor 7th. And as we go up, we have G, G sharp, A, and A. They're an octave away, neutral impact. So it's sort of something that doesn't affect the outcome of the chord. And then finally, with our pinky or little finger or finger 4, holding down the 2nd fret of the B string, we play the note C sharp, right? C, no, we have B, so it's the B string going B, C, C sharp. And that C sharp, let's go ahead and find out how far away it is from the A string. So, or from the note A. So again, we're thinking about relative intervals, the amount of spaces between the note as they relate to the root. The root being A, we got to count up. So we have A sharp, B, C, and here it is, C sharp. So in theory, if we play the 2nd fret on the B string and also the 4th fret on the A string, those notes are the same, C sharp. And if we go through that, that is our major third, right? So we've got our root, which is A. Then we have minor 2nd, which is A sharp. Major 2nd, which is B. Minor 3rd, which is C. And finally, major 3rd, which is C sharp. That's why we have the A major chord shape like this. And it looks a little block-like, and it's a little easier to remember because of that. So that's another reason I really like it. Now that we learned how to play A major, let's just realize and acknowledge we are so close to A minor actually, right? Because what makes an A minor, or what makes a minor chord? If we go back to that video about triads, it's a root, a 5th, so very same composure, or composition rather, but then instead of a major 3rd, right, C sharp, it's a minor 3rd, in this case C. So all we need to do is then flatten that note to a C. So instead of playing a major, we now play a minor. Now the reason why I like setting up in this variation number 2, where we use our middle ring and pinky 2, 3, and 4, fingers 2, 3, and 4, is because it's very easy to switch between this. Not only is it helpful for bar chords, but it's also helpful for switching to the minor. So when we play A minor, we just need to flatten that C sharp, the note that our pinky is playing. We're gonna go ahead, flatten it, and play the C. So the switch I've done is I've taken my index finger and placed it on the 1st fret of the B string, which is the note C. Now you might notice that because I've used my index finger to play the minor, that if I did want to play this as a caged chord and move it around like that, I would need to restructure yet again. So the way we do that is we start with our A in this chord positions, fretting position, I call it number 2 basically, but it's really primary position in my mind because it's the one I would use to play. But here we have A major, right? And instead of going to the minor with our index finger playing that C, what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna swap some things around. The ring finger and the pinky, fingers 3 and 4 are gonna, again, hop up. They're gonna hop up a string each, so that our ring finger is playing the 2nd fret, playing that note E, and that our finger 4, pinky, is playing the 2nd fret on the string G, which is the octave actually. And then what we've done is we've liberated both the index, finger 1, and also middle finger, finger 2. And now we play the minor 3rd with our middle finger instead of our index. This means that we're now free to move that chord shape around the A minor to play C minor, C sharp minor, D minor, D sharp minor. They're all minor. You might notice that. Minors, I think in this case, this minor sound is a lot easier to hear. You say, this feels minor. That feels minor, right? And so this is it. This is the cage system at work, right? We've learned now how to play A minor and also A major with different variations. My advice for troubleshooting, because you might run into some issues, one of the things that makes it difficult, there are 2 things that'll make it difficult. One is that you're putting a lot of fingers close together, right? So when you're doing that, you need to make sure you're giving each of your fingers enough space so that they can rest before that metal fret bar. This is all to do with correct fretting, and I have a video about that. So you want to keep those sort of guidelines in mind as you go through this process of fretting. You want to make sure that you're not touching the fret bar, and you also want to try to not be too far away from it. Then you start getting buzzes like that, right? But that said, you may need to move your middle finger or whatever finger is holding down the 2nd fret of the D string, which is the note E. You might need to move that a little bit further away from the fret bar, down that way. And the reason being that you got to give yourself some space to actually see and also fit in your fingers just below, because it's all in that same bracket, all within brackets between fret 1 and fret 2. So you really want to make sure that you're giving yourself enough space there. Now, I will say that, again, instrument choice will be a valuable thing here. If you are playing on a classical guitar, because it's a wider neck, you actually have more space to squeeze in your fingers. So this is especially handy. A classical guitar was especially handy for playing the A major, A minor, and also when we look at D major and D minor, especially those chords too. Now, the second thing you might run into with troubleshooting is the high E string. You might find that you're not getting a clear sound out, like a little mute, right? And if you run into that problem, what I would recommend doing is looking at where your thumb placement is. And if you can, try to adjust your hand and your thumb so it's a little bit further down on the back of the neck, like here, right? And if you do that, you give yourself a little bit more space so that you can adjust your fingers so that they ultimately end up looking perpendicular to the fretboard. So you're going to try to stop your hand from kind of leaning on that top string and straightening it so it's almost intersecting with the fretboard perpendicularly. And that's something that you want to watch out for. And I think looking at that video about correct fretting, that will be helpful in that instance for getting a clear sound out. And let me think, I think that just about does it for this video. Now I just want to do the really fun demonstration of the cage system. So again, as always, the cage system is not limited to major and minor chords, right? So even though we learned A major and we learned how to move that around, and that's a B and that's a C, right? And then this is A minor, and this is B minor and a C minor. Just because we learned that doesn't mean that those are the only variations we can do. We can do A major 7, right? B major 7, C major 7. We can do A minor 7, B minor 7, C minor 7. Yeah? And we can also do countless other variations. Dominant, for instance. A dominant, B dominant, C dominant. So again, it's just really fun. I love showing that. It looks like wizardry. It works really well. And that's it. That's how you would take advantage of the shapes in the cage system. So the A shape, the A major and A minor shapes, and their variations, which we will, again, look at the end after I go through all of the cage chords. It's just crazy what you can do, actually. I mean, the world is literally your oyster. You can do anything you want, really, musically after you learn this kind of principle. So it's really exciting. I hope you found this video informative and helpful. If you did, please consider liking the video. Please consider subscribing to the channel. It really does mean a lot. I saw that I broke 200 subscribers. Thank you to everyone that does subscribe. It does mean a lot to me. And thanks for watching. I'll see you at the next one. Ciao for now.